In this last video of the section, we will complete the tabbed controls for the Slideshow dynamic panel. And we'll also learn an important lesson about setting up interactions on one event rather than creating duplicate interactions on several widgets, which can cause confusion and messy logic. Let's add some interaction between the slider and our tabbed navigation now. Select Product 1 tab and double-click on-click to open the case editor. We are going to use the Set Panel State action. You can find this conveniently under the Dynamic Panels Actions heading. We currently only have one dynamic panel on the canvas that's listed here, so let's apply the action to our panel and our options appear. This is the tab for the first panel, that is Product 1. You can see that it's already selected. We'll also use a fade in and fade out. Okay. We'll basically repeat the same with the other two tabs, setting them to open their respective state. Let's test that out. Press F5. Great. Something still to do, however. Our selected state needs to be set on the right tab when you're viewing the respective slide. Let's do that now. First, we'll set the default selected item. The page will load with slide 1 visible, so we'll set this to selected by default. We can right-click on the Product 1 tab and set it to be selected by default. Now we're going to learn something important. We could go and add this action to the on-click handler, but that would be bad. Let me demonstrate. Select Product 2 and open the case editor. We'll use the Set Selected action found under Set Selected/Checked heading. Select what you want to be selected when you click on the Product 2 tab. Rather than searching through the list, it's much quicker to select this widget because the object is triggering an action upon itself. We can use this really useful shortcut that's been introduced to version 7. Okay, let's see what we've done. As you can see, it works. We click on Product 2 slide loads, and the Product 2 slide is selected. But we have two sets of controls for our slideshow now. What if from slide 1 I navigate using the next button? Try it. Refresh our page. Because the Set Selected action is on the on-click of the tab menu, it won't affect the actions that we are firing from our next button. So we could go off and add another action to the next button, right? Well, wrong. That would be duplicating. This is bad. Why, you ask? Well, if any changes come up in future, we would need to make changes in multiple places. A big headache. You're about to learn a very important lesson. You can set your actions for this eventuality in one place on the dynamic panel we are affecting using the on-panel state change event. The on-panel state change event is very handy. It is fired every time a state change is made to the panel. So we can have multiple controls enacting change to a dynamic panel, but attach all of the required actions on this state change event, rather than duplicating actions across multiple controls. This principle is key in tidy prototyping. If you don't fully understand this concept after completing this task, I strongly suggest you go through this again. Let's go cut the action from the Product 2 tab on-click case. Yes, keyboard shortcuts work. Control and X. We can then paste it, Control V, onto the on-panel state change event for the Slideshow dynamic panel. We are now going to need to set up some conditions so that we're setting the appropriate tab to be selected at the right time. Let's add a meaningful name to the case that we're about to create. Click on Add Condition. OK, we want where state of panel, we can use this, it is the state of this panel we are testing, equals state product 1. OK. We want to set product 1 tab to selected. Let's find it amongst our shapes. Checking the hide unnamed field is useful here. As you can see, we've carried over the set selected of this to true here when we pasted the action, so we need to uncheck that. This reminds me of another important point. You can duplicate actions unnecessarily quite easily. If I had 3 widgets I wanted to set to selected, I may think I need to add 3 instances of the action, like so. Unnecessary. Simply create one action and apply it to multiple widgets. There are exceptions to this rule, like if you want the actions to be executed in a different order with other actions in between, but that's quite advanced stuff. Okay, back to business. We have an action to set the product 1 tab as selected if the state of your slider panel equals product 1. There's no need to create actions to deselect any other tabs, remember, because we have a selection group set up that we did in the last video. You'll need to add 2 more cases to cover our 2 other scenarios where we want our tabs set to selected. Best thing to do is to duplicate and edit. Let's right click the slide 1 visible case, copy and paste. Double click it to open our duplicate. Now we'll update the condition to action when the product 2 state is active. OK. We'll change the action to set the product 2 tab to selected. OK. And we'll rinse and repeat for the 3rd panel state. Okay, let's test it. Our tabs are working fine. Let's test the next and previous buttons. Everything works as expected. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've learnt to create different states for dynamic panels and set up interactions to jump to specific states of a panel and to move linearly through to the next and previous. Most importantly, you've learnt about firing interactions on a dynamic panel using the on-panel state change event rather than duplicating cases across multiple widgets that affect the dynamic panel. Okay, coming up we will be looking at powerful features of Axure that permit collaboration between teams.